Here's a question for you. Do you need to touch your customers? Does your job require, handshakes and eye contact? Right. If not, if you spend your days on a computer or on a phone, there is an Indian who will do your job, perfectly qualified, at 1/10 your salary. And they'll work 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. There are more English-speaking Indians than there are Americans. Most are wired in more ways than one. But to see what is really happening, to get past the outsourcing hype, I traveled thousands of miles across this land, one that fills you with equal parts pity and wonder and awe, and one that'll give you 1 billion reasons to care.
Dawn in India. A nation of 1 billion awakes. In Bombay, there is a human density unlike anywhere else. Compared to Manhattan, there are twice as many people in half the space. This is a working-class home. Dad is a laborer, mom is a maid, the kids go to school.
How long have you lived here?
More than 2 years. In Delhi, the vegetable market comes to life, teeming, churning, a hive of pent-up entrepreneurial energy where personal space is the rarest commodity of all. Meanwhile, in the suburbs, dawn marks the end of the day at the call centers. Hundreds of thousands of Indians spent the night on American time, answering angry computer questions from Florida, reminding Texans to pay their credit card bill.
Ma'am, the amount due is $128.
While we sleep, they do our taxes, file our insurance claims, and read our x-rays. But for the talented and ambitious, these jobs just one rung in the ladder. With its manicured lawns and architectural wonders, Infosys is the Microsoft of Bangalore. They have long stopped advertising help wanted.
In the last 12 months, we received 1.4 million applications from young people around the country for jobs.
Less than 2% are offered a position.
Hey, what's up?
And as a sign of the times, this Indian company is now hiring American graduates. So if this is what's possible, why does most of India still look like this? Well, for starters, it is the world's largest and most diverse democracy. Though some will protest his foreign policy, President Bush is visiting the most pro-American country outside the U.S., a freedom-loving mix of almost every known religion, home to 150 million peaceful Muslims.
Imagine if that 1/5 of humanity in India were living like the people of Iraq today, blowing each other up in their houses of worship every other day and on the street. How different our world would be. So to me, India is a miracle.
But there is nothing tidy about this country, and that includes Indian democracy. It is a big, sloppy thicket of red tape, party politics, and corruption. Very little gets built or fixed. Mass transit is miserable. Water and power are a horror. In the capital of Delhi, 1/3 of the electricity is stolen. People just splice in and help themselves. And the traffic? Oh, the traffic. But if you sit here long enough and just watch, there's a method that emerges from the madness. Transactions, rituals, patterns. It's the same sort of self-organizing system scientists observe in anthills and beehives. Somehow, against all odds, things get done. And this might just be the secret to future success. C.K. Prahalad is an Indian-born American and a renowned business consultant. He says we should look at this grit and chaos not with pity, but with respect and fear, because this is the training ground for the next wave of global titans.
Every kid here who is walking around is getting trained to be entrepreneur, to hustle, and to get a little bit more than what he or she has. If you look at this, you're unlikely to see that this is a place where people are going to get educated on how to use computers.
Right, it doesn't look like much.
In other words, I think this is a metaphor for India. What you see outside is not what is inside. Outside, this could be a shanty, but inside is a Pentium PC.
I met Fareed while stepping over rats in a Bombay neighborhood. He was sending text messages on his cell phone.
What is your ID? Email ID?
You want my email address?
I want.
There are 700 million Indians under the age of 35, 2.5 times the U.S. population. And there was a day when the best and brightest would eagerly bring their brain power to America. But post 9/11, visas are tougher to get. And with a mall and a McDonald's right down the street, why leave home?
3:01 on the clock. 3 baj chuke hain. Dusra ghanta hai.
Priyanka is a popular DJ in Delhi.
Hi, welcome to Radio City.
And she conducted an on-air poll at our request. If you had a choice between taking your skills to America or staying in India, what would you do? The text message responses were almost unanimous. Look at that. We will challenge Westerners by working for our country because India is best. And that level of fierce pride and determination is evident everywhere. Is India catching up?
India is not behind you. He's with you.
Not behind us, with us.
You're seeing an explosion of 50 years of pent-up aspirations. And if you want to know what India feels like today, it's very simple. Pull out a champagne bottle, shake it for an hour, then take the cork off. You don't want to get in the way of that cork.
Out of Delhi, through the choking, honking masses of auto rickshaws and sacred cows, past the shiny malls and shantytown slums, and in the middle of a dusty, booming office park, I found America's switchboard, back office to the world.
Would you like to make a check over the phone? I can post-date the check also.
For a starting salary of around $2 an hour, upwardly mobile Indians spend their nights answering questions from confused appliance owners in Kansas and Wisconsin.
What the Americans don't hear is the curse is back. There's a common practice to put the phone on mute and curse people right back.
One Night at the Call Center is a runaway bestseller in India. In it, novelist Chetan Bhagat exposes the frustrations of this job, and his research revealed an interesting training method. At one call center, they teach new hires that 35 equals 10.
They say that a 35-year-old American's IQ is same as a 10-year-old Indian's IQ. So imagine you're talking to a child, and so don't lose your cool when you're talking to them. But this is exactly what was being taught.
Such revelations do little to ease outsourcing resentment, but this just might. A new study finds that India is not siphoning millions of American jobs after all. In fact, the U.S. tech sector has grown by 17% since the practice took off.
The numbers of jobs going to India for purely outsourcing reasons is quite small, and that the US firms that are doing it are getting stronger, more competitive, more able to hire more people.
And experts believe that by dialing India, you're not only making American companies stronger, you're making the world safer. A few years ago, India and Pakistan were on the brink of nuclear war.
The Indian business community, particularly the high-tech community, came to the leaders in New Delhi and said, excuse us, could you please not use the N-word anymore, nuclear, okay? Because we're like running the back rooms of the world's biggest companies, from American Express to General Electric, and we can't take a week off for war. And the government in New Delhi got the message. That ceasefire not brought to you by General Powell. That ceasefire brought to you by General Electric.
It's not just corporate America tapping into India's cheap brain power, it's middle America. When Texas mom Elizabeth Mitchell saw her son Jason struggling with math, she hired a tutor in India.
I've wondered what kind of house she lives in. I wondered what her parents are like, but she seems really nice.
Well, Jason, we found her. 24-year-old Swati Chopra lives with her parents in this Delhi neighborhood. Here's the computer she uses to teach you in Plano. And you're right, she is nice. When it comes to teaching American kids, she says she has to be.
In India, you can scold kids, but there you have to be very patient with them. You have to be very sweet with them. If you are not able to do this, let's try something else. Let's play a game, and maybe after that you'll feel like doing it.
You know, he's actually eager to sit down and get his homework done so that he can go off and play and do other things.
While math is now Jason's best subject, Swati has drawn a sobering conclusion from the rest of her students.
If you teach a student in India who's in a 7th grade, and you teach a student in US who's in 10th or 9th grade, their level will be same. There's a gap of at least 3 grades between the students.
If tutors like Swati can help close that gap, outsourcing our kids' educations may not be so radical. After all, some Americans are outsourcing themselves to India for surgery.
I got to the point to where I couldn't do things, functions with the family. The pain was too severe.
Insurance wouldn't cover Dennis Berry, and he couldn't afford an operation in his home state of Florida. So he flew to Delhi, where a world-class surgeon replaced both of his hips for $20,000, a savings of $100,000.
That includes my airlines, my friends' airlines. It includes the whole package. It's very impressive.
We've got to remember, we've been outsourcing goods or services for 70 years in America. And all that time, average American incomes have risen to now be the highest in the world. So if outsourcing's been a bad idea, for 70 years we've been doing it and doing pretty well.